You were listening to the Mark Petroni radio program, heard exclusively on News Talk, Sauga 960.
We are back with more on News Talk Sauga 960. So very glad that you could join us to start your week right here with us on the Mark Petroni Show. We have Miles Christen coming to us from, well, an undisclosed location in southern Wisconsin. He won't get any more specific than that because, Miles wants to make sure that he doesn't have weird people hunting him down somewhere in that part of the great state of Wisconsin. But we always welcome Miles on the show. It's been a little while. Miles, hi, how you doing?
Doing good. Yeah, no, I was, when I do my podcast stuff, I also say, I'll be talking to people in New Zealand or wherever, and they're like, where are you? And I'm like, southern Wisconsin, just because I've literally had Antifa people stalk me in the past. Weird.
And speaking of Antifa, Joe Biden, what's with this weird whispering thing he's got going on? He sounds incredibly creepy, Miles. I know you voted for him, and let's listen a little bit what your president is sounding at these days. As the leader of the free world.
And you said when people are waiting for relief, I got them $1.9 trillion relief so far. They're going to be getting checks in the mail that are consequential this week for childcare. A lot has been happened already, number one. Number two, I'm going to fight like heck to get them the rest of what I think has to be done. On education, for example. My proposal was in the family plan, early education and free community college. I'm going to fight like the devil to get that done. But it's not going to be with Republican help. I'm going to have to get every Democrat and do it through reconciliation.
Well, I thought they had a deal, and then he reneged on it. But what's with this creepy whispering stuff? It's a little strange, Miles. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. You look at him in the early 2000s. You look at him when he was vice president. You look at him just 2 years ago. I mean, 2 years ago when he started running, you knew it was bad. But now it's just, I mean, the train is completely off the track. And I voted for him just because I didn't want Trump to be president anymore. And there's nothing really I can't really think of anything that I'm happy with him on, other than that, you know, there have been some changes to how we responded to COVID. But I'm not happy with Joe Biden at all.
Operation Warp Speed, that was under Trump, though. He's the one who got that rolling. He's the reason why you got vaccines as quickly as you did. Especially at a time, well, don't forget it was the Democrats who were saying, hey, wait a minute, you know, this COVID thing is not a big deal. Why are we stopping flights in from Wuhan province and other COVID hotspots? But that all changed, and now, of course, Joe is more than happy to take credit for Operation Warp Speed. But we've got Trump now appearing to be on the campaign trail. Big rally in Wellington, Ohio. Let's hear what that sounded like.
Have no choice. And we're going to elect an amazing slate of proud American First Republicans next year. America First. You never used to hear that expression, did you? You hear it plenty now. After just 5 months, the Biden administration is already a complete and total catastrophe. I told you, crime is surging, murders are soaring, police departments are being gutted, illegal aliens are overrunning their borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Our poor borders, they were so perfect, they were so good. Drug cartels and human traffickers are back in business like they've never been before. They're doing numbers that they've never even thought possible. And just a few short months ago, drugs were way down. Human trafficking was...
I don't know, is there any part of that you disagree with, Miles?
I mean, the thing about Trump is that I wouldn't necessarily vote for, but I could see where a Republican president could come along very shortly and really fix a lot of things in this country. I don't see Trump being the Republican to do it, because he's just so over the top all the time. I mean, my biggest problem with him was, my biggest problem with Trump in his response to COVID was that he wasn't, doing enough to contain it, that he didn't do enough as far as testing and so forth. I think that Trump is right on certain things, and I know a lot of people who never voted for him, but they were sick of the Democrats, they were sick of the Republicans. In the first 3 years of Trump's presidency, we all kind of stood back and said, well, look, the economy is getting better. Certain things he would do. The thing that made him so appealing to so many, I think, is that he would do certain things that nobody else would do. I mean, it's funny. We got more decriminalization in some ways under him. Like, for instance, hemp and CBD are now legal under his presidency, whereas we never got that under Obama. His foreign policy as far as the wars was much, much better. I wouldn't say that he was a peace dove, but he certainly was less aggressive. He didn't get us in another war.
Right, well, which is the first one in decades. I mean, I can't
since basically like Jimmy Carter. I mean, it's insane.
Right, and now you've got Biden at Russia's throats, and you've got war drums beating in Asia even. So, I mean, Middle East, he's trying to cut a deal with Iran. I mean, all this...
yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the Iran nuclear deal was a horrific mistake that the Democrats have never realized. Like, that's one... I would definitely say the Iran nuclear deal was one of the many factors that caused them to lose in 2016, and it caused them to really upset a lot of people in Israel. And, I mean, they did that deal with... they did the Iran nuclear deal, and then you see Netanyahu and others really getting behind Trump, and they don't get how big of a failure the Iran nuclear deal was. How just idiotic, giving them cash.
Yeah, right. Pallets full of, I forget how many. Was it $150 billion just on pallets shipped over there to Iran? Something like that under the Obama.
We can inspect your facilities, but hey, we'll let you, we'll give you plenty of time to, clean up whatever you're doing and hide it. I mean, it's insane.
Okay, I got to ask you this. Is Biden suffering from serious cognitive decline? Is he suffering from dementia? And how big a danger is that? And when you add to that, do you agree with things that have been said, even by our own prime minister, that Kamala Harris is probably going to be the president by the end of 2022?
I didn't know that Trudeau said that, but I mean, by the end
he
of
was caught saying it.
Yeah.
Somebody overheard him saying it to his staff. But anyway, what do you think?
I think it's very possible. There's no doubt that he's in a serious cognitive decline, and I think so many people on the left side are just so burnt out that they're not even paying attention. I mean, I mention this stuff to people, and they go, "Oh no, Joe has a stutter," and it's like this has nothing to do with a stutter. And I never heard anything about him having a stutter when he was a senator or vice president. And there's an absolutely decline. The difference between Trump's presidency and everybody else's presidency, be it Biden or before Trump, is when Trump was president. If you loved him or hate him, you knew he was the one running the show, going out there saying whatever he wanted, no filter. With Biden and everybody else, they go out there as the president and they speak, but there's this whole management team instructing them on what to say. And even when he was at the G7 summit recently, he would even say things like that. He would even say, "I might get in trouble for saying this. Oh, I'm supposed to call on these specific reporters." I mean, he's not even hiding the fact that that he's basically a little puppet.
Yeah, well, that's not good. I mean, I get the impression that your objections to Trump were largely like stylistic, over the top. You don't like his style. You listen to the way he speaks. He's this brash guy from Queens, and you think, yeah, he's a kind of an embarrassment. But at the end of the day, isn't that kind of a small price to pay for the fact that your country ran so much better? Your economy was better. The border right now, you must admit, is a disaster. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people have crossed, and they're flying these people all over the place, presumably to bolster Democrat numbers in areas where they were close to losing or probably did lose in 2020.
I think it's two-part. I said once before that when he got elected and he came into office, had the Democrats treated him differently, he probably would have been able to make deals with them and compromises with them and do things, be it infrastructure or different economic policies. He probably would have been willing to work with the Democrats and find a middle ground, and it could have gone a lot more smoothly, and it would have gone probably a lot more smoothly and better in the COVID response. But when he came in, their statement was basically a big middle finger, not going to work with you at all. We're going to object to everything, and we're going to have protests. And so the Democrats, in part, created who Trump's presidency became because, the first thing was the Russia allegations and all this other crap. And then at the same time, he is a, scorched earth, burn it to the ground kind of, he's kind of like Joker from Batman or something, where he goes in there and he's just, he riles up the crazies on the left so badly that it's like because of Trump, we saw this rise in socialism and even communism. I don't know how it is, but this socialism and communism has become far more appealing in the United States in the last 4 years because it was like, oh, look, here's Trump. And then, the crazies on every college were able to use him as this boogeyman. And, what we saw last summer with the riots and so forth, it's in part because
so voting for Biden was like an appeasement play to the far left, which is to say, okay, well, we know you hate Trump, so we'll elect Joe so that you guys won't be like whack jobs doing what they're doing on the streets of Madison and elsewhere. Is that what it was? Is this like here's a sop to the far left? All right, we'll get rid of Trump. Is that what it was?
Well, so here's the funny thing. It's like all of that all that rabble-rousing, all those riots, all the crazy stuff we saw last summer and then the build up to it. And it's like, did they get a Bernie Sanders? Did they get somebody like Elizabeth Warren, somebody a little more radical, a little more progressive? It's like, no, they got the oldest guy who's most likely suffering from dementia, a guy who voted for war policies, voted for the Iraq War, voted for the Patriot Act, voted for all these terrible things. So it's like throughout all the Black Lives Matter stuff and all of it, and they got nothing really politically good out of it. And we could argue about what radical policies he is pushing or not, but in some way, the Biden administration is like pouring water on this fire that's been going on the left. And it's, you don't see as much stuff going on. People are definitely tuning out and losing interest. And I think also in part, they're not going to be financially
maybe they're getting
supporting.
What they want, Miles. Maybe they're just, he's bringing in radical policies. You pretty much have open borders now. You're moving towards a very socialist thing. You said yourself before we started this interview that because of all the, trillions of dollars that have been funneled out of the Fed and the government, you can't get people back to work. What's the situation? Go ahead, talk about that.
Oh, it's absolutely insane. There is like this push for this socialist utopia going on right now. They're basically trying to covertly start a universal basic income, and not in the like Milton Friedman or even Andrew Yang sort of way where it would be like, okay, we're going to give people money, but then we're going to get rid of these services that are pointless. It's give people money to not work, and people are making enough money where they don't have to work. And so everybody's hiring, factories, restaurants, hotels, everyone's hiring, and people are continuing not to work. And it's like right now, had you worked in the restaurant industry, you could actually move over to the hotel industry where you could actually work your way up and be making a lot more money. Like if you were working in hospitality, you could switch over to working in factories, a warehouse. I mean, potentially good corporate jobs. The economic mobility that's out there right now for people is an amazing opportunity if you take advantage of it. And yet people are choosing not to work, and it's like this isn't going to last forever. Like they're going to stop giving you the checks, and then you're going to be unable to find a job. When they start cutting those checks, the jobs are going to start being filled very quickly, and I think a lot of people are going to end up unemployed, and it's crazy. And then, I mean, on top of it, you've got what's going on with the schools, and they're pushing agendas, and they're masking it as anti-racism, but obviously the people doing it have a very specific political agenda that they're trying to push, and they're masking it as this equity. And I'm all for equality, but when they talk about equity, they're really talking, they're the ones who love talking about coded language, but they're actually the ones using coded language in that, they're talking about equity, but really they have a political agenda they're pushing. And so it's like you get the schools and you get the free checks, and it is still crazy here in the United States. I think it's a little less crazy than it was last year now that we're getting the vaccines out there and things are opening back up. But it's still a strange time down here.
All right, so the midterms next year. Any early predictions?
Oh my God, the midterms are going to be horrific for the Democrats. I mean, I can't imagine if they would have to make up some sort of something, I guess, to convince people to, vote Democrat at this point.
They need another pandemic, maybe, or.
I mean, they would have to
something.
They'd have to make up like a fake alien invasion and claim that only the Democrats have
Maybe that's what all this UFO talk is all about. It's about scaring people into voting Democrat.
Well, you had the war on terror. You had the war on. I've always said it. You've had the war on terrorism, which was kind of fake in some ways, and so you got to make a fake intergalactic war on terrorism or something. You got to make up like that the moon people are invading and they're funded by the Republican Party or some ridiculously stupid line. But
all right, Trump
does the midterms?
Yeah, debacle for the a big win for. So you're saying the GOP takes back the House? Senate?
I wouldn't be surprised if they win the House and the Senate. The only thing that the Democrats really have going for them is that they have, an army of youth being brainwashed into voting for them because of, fear and lies. You get a little bit older and you start paying taxes and you realize how much you're being messed over by the Democrats. And a big deciding factor for people in this country as to why they vote for Democrats or Republicans is the abortion issue. And that's one thing that the Democrats, have that they used to get people to vote for them. I mean, economic policies, the Democrats really mess you over. They take your money, they waste it. I mean, both parties take our money and waste it in, I guess, different ways. But the Democrats, I don't see what the appeal is. They have these, corporate people. And the thing is, they have this thing going on right now, which is basically corporate radicalism. They go out there and they present these, young people who they talk all this good game, but then in the end, they're still teaming up with people like, Senator Kerry whatever it is, Secretary Kerry, Hillary Clinton. They do these events, these online events with all these big corporate politicians, but then they go out there and they pretend to be all radical. It's just this weird mixture. And the Republicans, at least in this state and probably other states, are completely ignoring the fact that these nonprofit organizations, these activist groups, they're working directly with the schools to get kids involved in all these rallies.
To radicalize the kids with this woke crap.
And
yeah.
there's taxpayer money is funding all of this, especially in Wisconsin. I think it's part of the reason why Biden won Wisconsin. I've been talking about this for years and no one's paying attention. We're talking millions of dollars of taxpayer money is being used to facilitate these Democrat rallies, Democrat events.
To push communism. Meantime, it's Trump who's getting these massive turnouts at rallies. Not I still don't think that Biden could draw flies today to a rally if he would have one. I got to run. Miles, come back again soon, all right?
Will do.
Miles Kristen coming to us from somewhere in southern Wisconsin. And we'll be back with more on News Talk Saga 960 after this brief commercial break.
No radio? No problem. Stream us live on saga960am.ca.